morning, beautiful people. It is Monday.
Another day in
Ending in Y.
In quarantine.
I hope that you guys had a great weekend, chilling out and doing whatever it is you do on the weekends. I know we definitely did.
Had a great weekend.
And this morning, for this week, we are kicking off with one heck of a talk and one heck of a guest as well. We are
with a massive topic, I think.
Huge topic. I know so many people are going to get so much from this. So I think we're just going to kick.
Let's get straight into it.
So guys, today we are really lucky because we are joined by a very good friend and also an expert in his field as well. And also, I'm loving his t-shirt. For those
one just for you.
Yeah, it's a little like Superman, but with an A in it. You'll get it soon. So today, guys, we're joined by Andy Lopata, who we've just found out is Ukrainian, kind of that little bit is Russian-Ukrainian, which is interesting, his last name. And today, Andy has agreed to come on and talk to us about the subject of vulnerability and asking for help. Now, the reason Andy is such an expert on this is because he is in the midst of writing a book at the moment called Just Ask. And it is going to be out later on this year, maybe the beginning of next year, but we're going to hold it to him that he brings it out end of this year. He's an international speaker, author, and he is an expert in professional relationships. And that is why we thought he would be amazing to come and talk about this today. So I'm going to stop waffling on and I'm going to hand over to Andy. And, you know, just kick this off about vulnerability and asking for help. And I know that you kind of approached us, we kind of met mutually about this, didn't we, about this topic?
Yeah, well, good morning, first of all, and thanks for inviting me to chat about this. I find a lot of people have the same concerns, and it's obviously this has been a 5-year project for me, and what's been interesting for me to see is how over the last 5 years there's become an increasing awareness and a willingness to talk about vulnerability. Brené Brown's TED Talk and books have obviously had a big impact. The work of Prince William and Prince Harry in talking about their own experiences has had a huge impact in that time as well. So it's really come to the fore and made a difference. So I'm having a lot of conversations like the ones that we've had, where people are saying, yeah, everything's not perfect, and that's really what I want to encourage, is to get people sort of more comfortable talking about it.
Yeah, because I think, you know, there is, as you say, especially now, I know there's like, you know, we're talk about it, you know, it's really good to talk about things, mental health struggles, that sort of thing. But there is still a tiny stigma, I think, attached to asking for help. I don't know whether that's a British thing or whether that's something, you know, everywhere. But, you know, you say you studied this for 5 years. That's a lot of study on the subject.
Well, it's been a 5-year project for me, and just on one of the points you mentioned, in terms of is it a British thing, one of the chapters in the book is about cultural differences in vulnerability. You know, I interviewed people all over the world. So in that chapter, we've got people from India, from Siberia, from Russia, from Israel, from America, from Australia, you know, all talking about their culture. And actually, one of the most interesting comments comes from someone from England, from the north of England, talking about the difference between the north and the south.
Really?
So you've even got differences inside countries. And actually, the CEO of the Nigerian Stock Exchange was one of the people that I interviewed, and he said to me, you know, you can't sort of talk about Africa and the African approach. Even within a country, you've got differences. And I found a lot of people commented about that, and it's so easy to fall into that trap of saying it's a British thing. I think it's an individual thing and a personal thing. But what happened with me is I was going through a difficult time in my business, and I'm a member of the Professional Speaking Association. That's my tribe, that's my community.
Yeah.
And I found myself going to PSA meetings and people were saying, how's business? And I was going, yeah, it's great. It's fine. And I went to one event in Reading, and the speaker was running a workshop at the beginning, and he gave us a 2 or 3 page exercise to do where we answered several questions. And one of them was, how would you describe, well, they were actually 2 separate but similar questions. How would you describe your speaking business, and how would you describe your non-speaking business? Because some people have both.
Mm.
And it was like multiple choice. So the options were growing, stable, new, or in decline. And everyone filled them out. And then he got everyone to put their hands up for what they ticked. And when he said growing, people's hands went up. And when he said stable, people's hands went up. And when he said new, people's hands went up. But when he said in decline, not one single hand in the room went up.
Really?
Including mine. And my business was really struggling at the time.
Wow.
And that was the moment for me. It was just that moment of recognition of, well, I call this group my community, my tribe. If I'm not being honest with them, then who can I be honest with? And if I'm not honest with them, how can they help and support me? So that was the start of the journey. And a few months later, I made a commitment to get through this. And what was really interesting is a few weeks later, I bumped into another speaker at a private members club in London. And Derry said, how's business? And I said, it's rubbish at the moment. And he said, oh, I didn't know. How can I help? And I got 2 referrals from him in the next 2 weeks. He'd never referred me before because he hadn't thought I needed it.
Yeah, yeah.
So that need to open up is key. But I made a commitment to myself that when I'd got through it, because I think you need to have the fairy tale ending, if you like, when you tell a story. When I'd got through it, I would share with that community at our annual convention this message. Originally, it was called Bigger Than You, as in, you are bigger than yourself. This whole community around you makes you bigger than you, just you. And I delivered that talk in 2016, October 2016. And about 4, 5, 6 months earlier, someone I knew who had been a member of that tribe had killed himself. And it was because of money problems, and no one knew.
Wow.
And so it really made it personal, and even more so made it resonate. So it's a really important topic, but it's been a long time I probably interviewed over, I don't know how many people, 50, 60, 70 people around the world for the book, which is why it's taken such a long time to put that all together into a book that reads well, and got a lot of fascinating stories and a lot of perspective on it.
Is there a different split between, you say different nationalities and different in the same country is different splits? What about male and female? Is there a different splits in between them as well?
And age as well.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Men, we don't like talking, do we, us men?
No.
But women, they like to express how they're feeling. So I was wondering if there's a...
Yeah. Those are 2 other chapters in the book: the gender differences and the age differences. On the gender point, I read in there's sort of different layers to this, because is there a difference between men and women in sharing, and a lot of that is societal. So if you go to a country with a very paternalistic culture, and India is one of the examples in the book, where the man is seen as the head of the family and strong anchor of the family, if you like, then it's very difficult for men to share. Having said that, it's probably a lot easier for a man to share in a corporate male environment than it is for a woman, because a woman in that environment feels the need to seem stronger than she actually is. So there's context that comes into it as well. I didn't find black and white answers to these questions, I'll be honest. There's a lot of nuance in all of these questions. One of the questions I wanted to look at, I'd read Hillary Clinton's book on what went wrong in the 2016 election. And in there, she said that she found it a lot easier to open up to other women than to men. And so there are a few people that I've asked about that, and there is a pattern of women sharing with women and men sharing with men. I probably find it easier to share with women than men. I think women are more empathetic naturally. But I interviewed Lou Cambler, who's a former rugby league international, who retired at the age of 28, top of his career, because his brother had committed suicide, and he wanted to commit himself predominantly to campaigning for male mental health and suicide awareness. And he started something named Andy's Man Club after his brother, not me, I should hasten to say. And it's for men. I think it's that sort of 20 to 40 age range. Who will get together and share. And he was saying that the first couple of meetings men come to, they will stare at the floor and at their feet and other people's feet. And then as they understand there are other people around them who have experienced the same challenges, the same feelings, they open up. And actually, I think I finished that chapter with that it's not a gender thing, it's about finding people who have got something in common. With the age differences, I devoted the chapter on age difference to an interview with my niece, who's 21, doing her undergraduate degree, and at the time she was doing a project on, is this the loneliest generation ever? And a lot of the focus there is on social perfectionism and the need to be perfect in every way. And there's been a lot of news stories about increased suicide rates amongst very young people. I think part of that is down to cyberbullying, and I got bullied heavily as a kid, but I can't imagine what it would have been like if Facebook and WhatsApp and everything else had been around. But the other part of it is social perfectionism and the need to be perfect. And we've always been surrounded by role models that we're supposed to measure ourselves against, and they're almost always at unattainable levels for most of us. But now we're seeing them in so many more dimensions, and all of them are perfect. And so that drives a big challenge as well. So it's interesting because younger generations, and it's Gen Z more than millennial, if I'm getting my generations right, because they're always on their phones, it's easy to think that they're communicating more than we ever did, but it's not real communication. One of the things my niece said was that younger people find it harder to have a conversation, because in the conversation, in a live conversation, you don't get the chance to look at what you've just said and go back a few spaces and change it. And you can't use emojis and so forth. So the conversations they have on text and chat aren't real because they're not real time. And I think that takes away a lot of authenticity as well.
We spoke to a guy, I can't remember his name now.
Nick Loomy.
I don't know if you know him, but he'd done a big talk on it, and he was talking about we have transactions now, not communication. It's all about a transaction, a thumbs up, a smiley face. And you can read whatever you want to read into those. But when you have a conversation, it's two-way, isn't it? I give to you, you give back to me.
Yeah, but you can see someone's body language as well, can't you?
Well, I was saying to you before we went live that I've upset two people in the last few days, two people I care about. And both are because they're on chat, they're on text, and there's been a subtext that they've been struggling. And because I've been transactional in my mind, because I've been quite stressed about what I've reached out to them for, I've not really picked up the level of subtext, the level of nuance in the chat, and I've not acknowledged it. So they've got upset because they see me as hopefully a caring person, and I'm not showing that I care, because in a text, I tend to be, I'm not a massive texter, and so you lose that real life connection. So yeah, it's very difficult.
So, like, obviously, everything that's going on at the moment with the coronavirus and everything, why do you feel right now this subject is more important than ever for people that are struggling, not sharing, finding it difficult? Why is it so important right now?
Well, it's one very simple reason, is that we've got more time with our own thoughts. Now, everyone's different. If you live alone like me, then it can be very tough. It could be very nice as well, because I can watch what I want and do what I want, and I'm not getting under anyone's shoes. But you're left alone with your own thoughts a hell of a lot more. So people who might be more vulnerable and who don't like that social isolation anyway, will be struggling with that. Extroverts who draw their energy from being around other people are going to find those energy levels are dipping, and they're going to be struggling. So I think there's that issue as well. And plus, on top of that, we're having our normal lives just shaken up. And our normal schedules shaken up, and there's a couple of impacts of that. Number one is, if you are a person who likes structure, who knows what they're doing, then every day blending into the other becomes very difficult, particularly if you can't do your job from home and you're not a key worker. I mean, I'm finding I'm going bored out of my mind at the weekends, but I'm busy during the weeks, and I could work at the weekends, but I choose not to, because otherwise I'm just going to get swamped by it. But not everyone has that option, and if I'm getting that bored during the weekends, then what's it like when it's just week after week after week? So there's that element. There's the financial security element that's going to exacerbate everyone's concerns and worries as well. There's the element of worrying about friends and family who are in at-risk groups. So, my parents are in a vulnerable group, and I can't go, and I go around, but I have to stand well away from them, and I limit how much I go around, and that's tough. And I guess my biggest concern is worrying about them and their mindset and how they're coping, rather than anything else. But we have a lot of things that can create worry. And if we don't have the social environment where we feel that we can vent, and we've already talked about the difficulties of doing this by chat, where you miss the nuance. If I'd have been with those two people in person and we'd have had the same conversations, the outcome would have been different, because I would have picked up that something was wrong. And if that's not available to us in the same way, then this becomes more and more of an issue.
And I know, like, for us, within 365, which is our membership group, we are always open in there. We're like, right, guys, what's the traffic lights today? Red, amber, green. Who's in red, especially when we do our connection calls, where we actually get to see them on a Zoom. We're like, right, just talk. Just tell us what's going on. Because, we do sit and we do fester, even without this. I know a lot of our clients, before they come to us, are sat and they're ashamed to ask for help, which I know we're going to go into all of this, but they're ashamed to ask for help. They think, well, I've got myself in this situation, I should be able to get myself out, and it can be really difficult, and even knowing what to say.
I think that's the hard bit, knowing how to start that conversation. I need help. I think that's the really hard bit.
And the other part of it is we were talking about text chat. Every text, every email I get says, how are you? But the trouble is, it almost becomes a muscle response. In the book I talk about how we're conditioned to say, I'm fine, I'm good. In the 80s and 90s, we were all told by Americans, don't say I'm okay, say I'm great, I'm fantastic. No one ever said tell the truth.
Yeah, true.
And actually I do tend to disregard those, because I just feel you're just saying that you're not you know, a lot of the time, not all the time, but you don't mean it. Ivan Meisner, so you might have come across BNI, which is the
Yes.
breakfast networking group. So Ivan was the founder of BNI. And Ivan in the book talks about semantic differential questioning.
Okay.
And so what semantic differential questioning is I say to you, how are you? And you say, yeah, I'm good, thanks. And say, yeah, but how are you really?
Yeah.
You say, no, things are good. So what's happening in your life? So you ask 3 times to just encourage people to really open up.
Yeah.
And I think we need a little bit more like that, but a little bit more clearly authentic asking of that question. And I'm not saying that, you know, people who are say, how are you, don't mean it. Some do, some don't. And that's the trouble. We can't always tell the difference.
Yeah, absolutely. I totally agree with you. It's just kind of like a thing that you say, isn't it? If all of us do it. Hi, how are you doing? Yeah, I'm okay, thanks. Even if you think about it now, it just rolls off the tongue, doesn't it? It really does. So I know when we put out this and said that you were coming on, there was a little conversation that you had with somebody, and you said there are 3 things as to why we find it difficult to ask for help. Do you want to? Can we know what these 3 things are?
Well, actually, the reason was because she said in her comment that she said I often find that I feel like I'm being a burden, and I said that's number 1. The first reason why we don't ask for help is that we feel like we'll be a burden to other people if we do ask for help. And the way I address this is I ask the question, have you helped someone recently? Can you think of someone that you've helped in your personal or professional network where it's worked out?
Yeah.
How did it make you feel? And very few people will answer that by saying, well, I hated it. You know, it was a real burden. People will say, oh, I felt really good. I felt great.
Yeah.
Oh, I felt useful. I felt helpful. You know, it's 99% positives. So there's 2 things happening there. Number 1 is there's a disconnect. We don't ask people for help because we're worried about being a burden to them. And yet, when we help other people, we get pleasure from it. Mm-hmm. So as long as we're thinking of the right people, you know, people who we've got a strong established relationship with, not a stranger on the street. They're not saying, go up to a stranger on the street and saying, I want to give you pleasure, can you help me? You know, that's not the advice here, but to someone we know and trust, we're denying them pleasure by not asking them for help. And it's about reframing that in your mind and understanding how other people feel. The second part of it is, I said 99% of it's positive. There's going to be a percent that isn't, because it is a burden. And there's a very simple reason it is a burden. It's because you're not making it easy for people to help you. Your number 1 job is to make it easy for people to help you. Simplest example of that is, how can I help you? Oh, introduce me to anyone you know who might, you know, benefit from what I do. Getting the other person to do all of the work on your behalf. You know, if you need help from someone, guide them to the help that you need. Make it easy for them to deliver. Tailor it to what they're good at or who they know or what they can offer, and be really clear about the help you're asking for. If you do that, then you're not going to be a burden, because you're making it really easy for them to deliver. So that's number 1, is being a burden. The second reason we don't ask for help is because we don't want to look weak. We don't want to look vulnerable. You know, I worry what people are going to think about me if I do this. Well, you know, let's use this as an example. Let's take 2 different scenarios. Scenario number 1. Laura Barry, look, I really need your help. My business is going to the wall because my last 5 clients have all sacked me because I haven't been able to deliver the goods. I keep falling out with my clients, arguing with them all the time, and my business is going to go bust if I don't get more clients soon. Can you help me? Sound pretty weak and vulnerable, don't I? And by the way, don't record that and play that out of context. But then the second scenario is, guys, I wonder if you can help me. I've just been working with a few clients. Well, let's take you guys as an example. So let's reposition this so it's you guys. We've just had a number of people come through it's the F90 program. A number of people come through the F90. They loved it. Really, really great results. They feel completely transformed. We're running a new program. We're looking to get 10 people onto it, and I want to get the word out there. I know you understand how good we are. Can you help me just spread the word? Does that sound weak and vulnerable?
Not at all,
Not
no,
at all.
no, definitely
So
not.
it's how you position it. It's how you position that help. The other thing I would say on vulnerability is my advice. The book's called Just Ask, but it isn't just ask anyone. So it's about having a trusted network of people that you can be vulnerable with, that you can say, I don't know, I'm struggling, I'm not coping. And you don't necessarily portray that image to the world. There's a couple of chapters that look at social media and social media use and where's the line. And there's different schools of thought. But there are people that have gone on social media and bared everything. There are others that don't share anything anywhere. My personal preference, I don't tend to expose all my doubts and worries on social media. But I will in conversation with people I trust. So it's finding that trusted network with whom you can be vulnerable without fear of being judged. So you deal with it that way. So that's worried about being a burden, worried about looking vulnerable. And the third is that we just assume. We assume that people won't want to help us, can't help us. We make their minds up for them. And that's not our job. Our job is to ask people for the support we think they can offer and not take it personally if they say no. There are countless reasons why people might not be able to help you. You are only one of them. And if you're asking the right people, you're probably one of the least important reasons why they would say no. So make it easy for people to say no and let it bounce off you. Don't take it as a rejection, but understand that there may be different reasons why. Don't assume. Let people say no. That's fine. But I can pretty much guarantee that if you don't tell them what you're looking for and the help you need, it's going to be much harder for them to offer it.
I mean, every single one you've hit there for me, definitely.
100%.
And I know some of the guys here have said they've thought about that. But I know for us specifically, people will come to us because they want to lose weight or, they're not happy or whatever.
Yeah.
So as you say, making it easy within that. Look, I'm really struggling with my weight. I've been doing this for years, and it's like making it specific, making it easy for us then to help them.
Yeah.
And it's almost like when you said about feeling weak, I think that's when you want to lose weight or you're an emotional eater or something like that. I'm just trying to think about, our guys, and it's like there's so many personal trainers out, there's so many coaches out there, and you've got this whole thing, I think, as well of, well, nothing's worked before, so I'm kind of useless and I'm never going to be able to get the help. And I think this fear of being judged, because you see somebody and you think, oh my God, they're doing amazingly and they do really well. You almost feel scared to approach them in case they judge you,
Yes. And that also comes onto the assumption, Banner, because you don't know how they're going to respond. And ultimately, if someone judges you adversely, whose problem is that?
Well, yeah, that's their problem.
It's their problem. If you've done nothing, if either they're judging you just on the upper level, the outer layer they can see, and they don't know the context, then that's their problem, not yours. And maybe you're better off finding that out sooner. There is also, Barry, you mentioned earlier is it a British thing? Something that I think is a British thing is how we judge failure. There's a saying that in America, you've never made it in business till you've been bankrupt 3 times. Whereas
Really?
in the UK,
I heard that.
yeah. Yeah, just why do you think that Donald Trump's president? He's been bankrupt more often than anyone else. But in the UK, as soon as you bankrupt, you failed.
Yeah.
We learn from failure. We don't learn as easily from success.
Okay.
So, don't let people judge you. Let people work through it with you, and let them learn from your failures as well. Embrace them.
I suppose. Sorry, carry on, Andy.
I was just going to say that the opening main chapter of the book is all about my failure with the book, why this didn't come out when it originally should have done, because I didn't get it right. So I've actually embraced failure from the very beginning.
Yeah.
And for people reading the book, I say, read on. This has been rubbish for the first 3 drafts. It's not been good enough. But it's I gave a talk. Sorry, I just hit my mic there. I gave a talk a number of years ago, and it was a small talk. It was a talk I gave countless times over years, but it sticks in my mind because the response to it from that audience was off the charts. It was so powerful, and I knew why instantly. The talk was split into 3 different topic areas, and each topic area was illustrated with a story. Now, my style is I've got a lot of stories I share. Very often there'll be similar ones on the talk, but if something's in my mind, that's what will come out when I deliver the talk. I don't script every presentation. I mind map them, so I have a structure, and then I can bring in more topical and more recent things. For whatever reason, it wasn't pre-planned. The 3 stories I shared during that talk were all about my failures. They were all, in a sense, self-deprecating.
Mm-hmm.
And the response from the audience was off the charts compared to normal. Mm. And in the book, I talk about a study that Harvard Business School carried out, where they look at what they call benign against malicious envy. And they looked at how people responded to people who simply shared their successes or shared their successes with their failures along the way. And with people who simply shared their successes, there were high levels of malicious envy being defined as, I want that person to fall, I want them to fail.
Yeah.
Where they had shared their successes but incorporated their failures along the way, there were high levels of benign envy, which was defined as, I want to be like you.
Yeah.
So actually we tend to want to hear other people's failures because it brings them down to our level.
Yeah. No, I totally get that.
You can relate to people then, can't you? Because we've all been through failure at some point in our life, whether it's asking the person out and being rejected, whether it's going for the job, being rejected from it. And I think when we see the people on the pedestals, when we don't hear their failures, we think that's unattainable to be there. As soon as we hear their failures, we think, I can actually raise myself to their level. I can actually do what they're doing. It gives you hope. It gives you a foresight to see that is possible, to be happy, healthy, whatever it is. So I think we need to all share that.
Well, I always say to people, I don't stand or sit here today because of all the successes I've had in my life. I sit here today because of all the failures I've had in my life and all the times I've asked for help, even though it's been difficult sometimes. You know my background, and everyone here knows my background, struggles with mental health and stuff. And, it is because of our failures. But the thing is, as you say, on social media, we never really see that. We just see people with, look at the big contract I've got, or look at the amount of weight that I've lost, or, look at what I've overcome. And it's like, okay, but what did you do to get there? There isn't a realistic story behind it. You just see that and you're exposed just to that, Yeah,
absolutely. Later today, I've got another interview on this same topic, and this is for the association, where it's the Association of Business Mentors, and I delivered the first Just Ask presentation for them last April, and at the time we had a publication date of September last year. So we are now 6 months beyond the original publication date. A huge amount of enthusiasm from the presentation, a lot of pre-orders for the book. on Amazon as a result of that presentation, and a lot of people really looking forward to it. And we agreed to do an interview around September, October as a follow-up for their webinar series. And at the time I said, well, as it got closer to the time, I said, well, let's put it off until the book comes out, because the whole point is to follow it up with the book. And then we got to the beginning of this year, and the manuscript was rejected by the publisher for the third time. It had to be rewritten again. And I said to the Association of Business Mentors, I said, let's do the interview anyway, because my natural instinct as a human being who wants to be seen as successful is to say, well, we can't do the interview because we haven't got the book to show them, the finished product. Yeah. But actually, I realized this fits in with the whole topic. I need to do the interview to say it all went wrong, and this is what happened, and this is what I've learned from it. And yeah, I do hopefully have that positive outcome coming at the end. I still don't know. I'm still, the book is rewritten. We're now looking at whether I stick with my original publisher or look at other options. But it just felt right to go back and say, I'm sorry, I got it wrong, I failed. But this is what I've learned from it, and what you can learn from the exercise as well. So we're doing that interview today.
Do you think that's the biggest thing we need to do, is embrace our failures and saying, like, doesn't matter what the outcome's going to be, I just need help? Because I think that's the hardest part, is actually going and saying, acknowledging that you need help, or you feel vulnerable, and you go and asking for somebody. That are two things that I find really difficult, especially in my life. I need help, right, I'm going to take ownership of that, and now I've got to ask for someone to help me.
Yeah.
So what would be the easiest things to get someone to help you out, to make that portal?
So the first part is do we learn from the failures? Do they help us on the journey? We met through the Change Your Game accelerator program that Baiju Solanki runs, and as part of that accelerator, in my first coaching call with Baiju, we agreed that I would run senior executive retreats as a core product, and it was something new for me. And Baiju said, set a date. And he said to me, it doesn't matter whether you achieve it on that date or not. He said, if you manage to fill it and you run it, that's a success. If you don't, we learn from why you don't, and that's a success. And actually, the retreats haven't run. They were going to run in May, and obviously that's not possible now. Exactly. But that was actually the third shift of dates, which Baiju kept beating me up for. But I have, the fact that they were there has led me into conversations with people that have led me to develop other ideas, other products, including an ebook that's coming out at the end of May. That's designed to help on that journey. So I needed the failures in place in order to get to the point that I believe will take me to success. So we need those in place. We need to learn from them. And sorry, Barry, the sort of second part of your question was about how do we position ourselves?
Say, right, I need help. How can I go and ask somebody for help? Because it takes some balls to actually do that. Doesn't it?
Yeah.
And it's mustering it up to say, help.
Number one, be clear about what help you need and what it's going to help you achieve, and why that's important to you. If you can focus on what that help and support will enable you to do, and how you will feel when you've got that help, then that makes it easier to ask for it. It's classic goal setting, effectively. Yeah. The second thing is to understand who in your circle is best placed to give you that help. Now, again, another interesting fact is, are you best turning to someone you really like and you know really well? Sometimes the best help comes from strangers. Yeah. There's a theory in recruitment known as Granovetter's theory of weak ties. It's from a sociologist called Mark Granovetter, and he looked at where job opportunities came from within networks. And he found that most opportunities came from what he called weak ties rather than strong ties, people you didn't know as well. And the reason for that, he said, was your strong ties know all the same people as you do. The weak ties open you up to new networks. And I wondered if there was a Lopata theory of weak ties when it came to vulnerability, because your strong ties know you, they think the same way as you potentially, you've heard what they think anyway in their input. Weak ties will open up new ideas. That didn't quite pan out in the book. I do think that that's something always to consider, and having cognitive diversity in your network, in other words, people who think differently. And I really recommend Rebel Ideas by Matthew Syed as a book on that topic. I think is essential. So opening yourself up to different ways of thinking, different types of ideas. But one of the core themes of the book, whenever I asked a question about this, trying to come up with my Lopata's theory of weak ties, was people feel more confident sharing on the whole with people they know, like, and trust.
Yes.
So stage 2 is look to your circle, look to your network and say, who do I trust with this, and who's got the relevant expertise, experience, mindset, connections, whatever it might be, who I can ask. And then, what's stopping you? Is it worry about being a burden? Is it fear of looking vulnerable? Is it assumption? Understand what's stopping you, and then use that understanding to get past it. And then ask.
And I think, like you said here, when you ask for help, maybe in a different circle, it opens up to different ideas. Because I think sometimes, as you say, we just assume that, you know, we've tried everything, especially obviously with our guys. Well, I've tried everything. I'm going to drop some names. I've been to Weight Watchers, been to Slimming World. I've done, you know, the program. What else can you kind of help me with? But you never ever know what resources that other person's got. You just don't know, do you?
I run. Tried everything.
Sorry.
If you haven't reached your goal, you haven't tried everything.
I run, in one of the talks I deliver, I run mini mastermind groups. These are 5-minute breakouts where people have to solve a challenge. And so many times I've had my clients say to me, you know, the challenges that we face are very unique to our industry, or they're very unique to our organization. And when I do this mastermind breakout and I go around the room and I listen, they're the same challenges every time. But if you have, so imagine a challenge, and imagine that mastermind group is full of people in a property company. And then the next week it's with people in an IT company. And the next week it's people with the fitness industry. Do you not think that you'll get different solutions? Because it's different ways of thinking, different experiences, different accepted wisdom. And you have to break through that.
But I see that as well. If we've got a physiological problem going on in our body, you go and see a surgeon, they want to cut you open. You go and see a general practitioner, they give you medication. You go to see a psychiatrist, they want you to talk about the problem. Whatever your speciality is, that's the information you're going to get from that person. So if you see a vast array of people from different backgrounds, different walks of life, you're going to get so many different other experiences from them, but they're going to ask you different questions. And I think that's really important, that people ask you different questions, because that gets your brain thinking in a different way.
And that leads me on to one of the other key things that we need to do. And sort of 2 parts to it. One is you don't have to just ask one person. Get different inputs to a challenge. And 2, you don't have to do what you're told. You are looking for opinion, you're looking for guidance, you're looking for advice. You're not looking for the solution. Because the people that help you, and look, help and support comes in lots of different ways, and I'm talking about just one of them, because it can just be moral support, for example. But we're talking about advice and guidance. The person who gives you that advice and guidance isn't the person who's going to feel the ramifications, whether it goes right or whether it goes wrong. That's you. So you have to take responsibility for the actions you take. You commit to listening, you commit to taking everyone seriously. And I recommend you commit to listening with no preconceptions. So when we mastermind, people are not allowed to dismiss an idea when it's presented. You have to listen and take it on board. Nothing's off the table. But ultimately, you're the one who takes responsibility for the actions you commit to.
That is a huge thing as well, because it's all right asking for help, but then, as you say, don't necessarily look for a solution, look for guidance, but also, as you say, that's huge responsibility. When you go and ask someone for help, you've got to take the responsibility to take that action yourself, haven't you?
Yeah. Otherwise, and here's a big thing for me. If I ask you for help,
yes,
let's say it's advice and guidance. I ask you for advice and guidance. You give it and I ignore it completely. That's disrespecting you.
yeah.
If I ask you for advice and guidance, you give it, I weigh it up, I assess it, and I feel, well, that's really useful, but it's not right for me.
Yeah.
That's fine.
Yeah, yeah.
But you need to respect the guidance and advice you're given and the people who give it to you.
Yeah. So it's almost like we have to learn about how to ask for help. Yeah. Really, isn't it? They should teach this stuff in school.
I remember when I was at school, I was very lucky. I went to school where one of, I'd show my age now, one of the O levels that I took was economic and public affairs, which was economics and politics. But in that we learned, show my age again, what happens with a check when you write it. How democracy works, what happens with voting, and all these simple things. And I was like, why is this not on, we didn't have a national curriculum then, but why isn't this, like maths and English, a compulsory topic for everyone? And these life skills. So those were life skills as well. Yeah. And what you're talking about is a life skill. Yeah. There should be life skills taught in school, and I think schooling in that sense is a lot better than it was, when I went. But at the same time, we focus, I think, far too much on skills that we don't ever sort of use in our adult life. They might help us in problem solving and areas like that, but we don't teach the basics.
No, we definitely don't. I totally agree. And that's where it's down to the likes of us and the likes of you. Yeah. That's why what we do is so important. And, even me and Baz say, if we can help one person a day, then we've done our job. Do you know what I mean? Without a shadow of a doubt. And I think today we've helped a lot of people, definitely.
I hope so.
Yeah, we're getting comments in from Pam said, I've never thought about it like that when you was talking about being a burden, and that, when you've asked someone for help before, they've actually got pleasure out of it, so you're denying the pleasure. Emma says, thanks for today's conversation. It's really interesting. Pam says, I think it's important that we don't see getting things wrong or making mistakes as a failure, which, we've touched on massively today. Definitely.
Yeah. I think it's a great way we should embrace failure and celebrate people's failures more than sort of go in the corner and put the hat on your head and turn and face the wall and make a mistake.
Yeah. What did you learn from it? Someone says, I failed. Well, what did you learn from it? Yeah. That's the great question. And to your point about helping one person every day, I often get asked what's the most rewarding thing about what I do, or why do I do what I do? And it's when someone turns around and tells me the impact of whatever I've said. I delivered a talk based on Just Ask in November, and a couple of days later, one of the audience members tagged me in a post on LinkedIn. And in the post was a picture of a vase of flowers and a card. And she said, because of that talk, I reached out to my friends and I told them what I'd been struggling with and hadn't shared with them. And someone's just sent me these flowers and this card to say that I'm valued. Yeah. That meant everything to me, and it's those moments. And so that goes to the pleasure of helping other people.
Absolutely.
So if you put yourself out there, I mean, we've talked a lot about asking for help. We've touched on offering help, but there is the other side of the coin. And we have, I talked about how I wasn't picking up the nuances in text messages this week. Little things like that, we need to be there for people. And, I got a phone call from someone close to me in my network, literally lunchtime on Friday. I had 20 minutes to eat my lunch. I was going on an all afternoon board meeting call, and she called me in distress. I gave her 15 of those 20 minutes because, it's important to be there when people need it. And you have to manage your own emotions if you do that too much.
Yes.
But be there for people and recognize the opportunity to help others.
Yeah, I love it. That's just brilliant.
Yeah.
Thank you so much. Guys, I really hope that you've taken a lot away from this today. It's been eye-opening for me, and I've had a few goosebump moments when you've been talking. Definitely.
I think it's so important that we heed this. If we are struggling, guys, if there's anything you're struggling with, ask for help. Don't be ashamed. Don't be embarrassed. Don't think you're going to be a burden to somebody. Just say, look, I need some help, guys, and take Andy's advice here, because it's going to help you. It's going to help them as well. This is such an important subject.
Even if, you reach out to someone and just type the word help, and they'll probably come back and say, what's up? And then you can go into the how they can help you and what you're dealing with. As you said, be, specific, make it easy for them to help you.
Definitely, and don't bottle things up. That's the most dangerous thing you can do. And going back to something we said earlier, pick up the phone. Don't rely on texts, because the nuance is all lost. And if you feel people aren't picking up that nuance, both those people were really honest with me. And okay, it was a punch in the gut both times.
Yeah.
But I had to look at how I responded, and I think that's the healthy way of doing it.
Yeah, absolutely. I totally agree with you. Andy, thank you so much for coming.
My pleasure.
It's been amazing. And the guys here are saying thank you so much. Emma says, I love helping others, but struggle with asking for help. Your pointers have really helped today. So thank you very much.
Good. Really pleased. Thanks, Emma.
Andy, I know that obviously, when we came on, and this is just the kind of guy that Andy is, he said, I want to talk about why the topic is so important. And, we have talked about that. But I'd really love you to tell us where the guys can find out more about you. Obviously, I mean, I can't wait to read the book. I really want to read it. I really do, because I think it's going to be wonderful for a lot of people. So where can they find out more about you, Andy?
So what's happening with the book is as I mentioned, I've got to make a decision on publishers. I do have a publishing contract, but they haven't been very behind the book to date. So if I go ahead with them or with another mainstream publisher, this is a mainstream publisher, it will be next year now, because they have very long lead times. There are a couple of other options that would bring it out more quickly, but would limit distribution. So I have to weigh those up. But for that, if you follow me on Amazon, I have an author page on Amazon, so my books all appear on there. With a surname like mine, as long as you can spell it, you can find me. It's Lopata. My website is andylopata.com, or just lopata.co.uk, whichever you prefer. Take you to the same place, and there's lots of resources on there. If you go to the website, there's a 3 weekly newsletter you can sign up at on the homepage at the bottom there. Tips and ideas. Currently I'm running an A to Z of mentoring, masterminding, and asking for help, and we're on the letter E in the next newsletter, and there's always a bit of fun in there as well. Twitter, Andy Lopata, facebook.com/networking strategy, LinkedIn, you can follow me, just search my name and just follow. And I post a lot of videos and blogs on LinkedIn, YouTube, Instagram with a name like mine, I'm easy to find.
You will find him, definitely.
Yeah.
But yeah, absolutely. Thank you so much, Andy, today. It's been amazing. And what a way to kick off a Monday morning.
Definitely.
Absolutely.
Enjoy the rest of the week.
We are going to leave Facebook, and we're going to go and have a little after party as we normally do. And guys, have a fantastic day. Don't forget, ask for help. You're not a burden. You're not weak. And don't assume that that person can't help you. 100%. So guys, we'll see you later. Have a good day.